Multiple sclerosis is a really difficult condition to get a diagnosis for, and it can take years for that diagnosis. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 2 years ago, but I had my first relapse 10 years before. Getting a diagnosis felt a lot easier for me than it does for other people. This is the story of how I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, so make sure you save this video to come back to later. The first symptom that I noticed was called an MS hug. I woke up with what felt like a band was squeezing around my chest, and I was really struggling to breathe. A few weeks later, I felt like I had this sensation that I was on a boat and the room was spinning and I couldn't walk properly. I left it for a few days, but eventually I ended up in hospital and I had to have an MRI. They told me that they found a single neurological episode on my brain and they diagnosed me with something called clinically isolated syndrome. 8 years later, I ended up having another MRI that showed that I'd had neurological progression, and it was that MRI that meant that I'd met the McDonald criteria for relapse and remitting multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is usually diagnosed using a combination of MRI scans, lumbar punctures, and symptoms all combined together. Make sure you're following along and I'll explain in detail all of the mistakes I made in getting a diagnosis for multiple sclerosis that you can avoid.